Hello, Redhawks. IDTT coming to you with an update on the Turnitin tool and some of the settings to be aware of when you're creating assignments. A few of these are just some basic things that you might not realize are there or important. And there's also some information about resubmitting and some of the problems that we run into now that we've transitioned to this version of Turnitin from the previous. So first part is just making sure that we get our due dates set up the right way so that students have access to the assignment. So for that part, there are two basic things that you need to make sure that you're aware of. One is the assignment settings. So when you create the assignment, obviously you'd have all your information, set all these things as per preference for the course. You would have gone through and select external tool. There's another video posted on our YouTube channel that explains how to get this part set up to begin with if you're new to that. And then the due date down at the bottom, like you would normally assign to any assignment. So this is obviously the due date that you want students to see in their calendars, their to-do list that would be attached to the assignment itself. So you would set that as normal. The part where we're running into some issues potentially is then within the date in the Turnitin settings. So when you create the assignment for the first time, these options will pop up automatically when you create the assignment. If you ever need to go back to them, you can go back to the assignment, click the gear icon, and it will take you back here. From there, then you have these three dates off to the right-hand side: start date, due date, and feedback release date. Start date is only important in that you want this assignment to show up for students, allow them to be able to start submitting. So you need to make sure that's set well before your due date is. That will allow it so that students can put their submissions in to begin with. How you set that up is up to you, whether you want it to be the date that you assign. Maybe you set them up to be earlier in the semester so that you don't have to worry about it. Anything works there, just depends on how your course is set up. The due date, now there's the due date that we just talked about in the Canvas settings, but there's also a due date in the Turnitin settings. So at the very, very least, those two dates need to match. So this due date, if you remember when I said it was the 22nd, this one says the 19th. What's going to happen if I leave this as the 19th? On the 19th, the submission option within Turnitin is not going to be available any longer, even though in Canvas, I told the students they had until the 22nd. So I would need to update that to make sure it matches my Canvas due date. Now, if you're not worried about late submissions or potential resubmissions, that's the only thing you really need to know, is that the Canvas date and the Turnitin date need to match. There are a few other things that we need to talk about when it comes to late submissions and potential resubmissions. Late submissions is simple and straightforward. We go down, open up our optional settings. There is an option here for allow late submissions. We turn that on. That will allow them to be able to submit after the due date that we have set. So again, pretty straightforward to this point. Where things get a little bit tricky is if we want to allow resubmissions. Now at this point, this is the best information that IDTT has based on some of our own tests and call to Turnitin at this point. If you want to allow resubmissions, by default, this first option, generate reports immediately, students cannot resubmit, is enabled. So if you want a student to be able to go back and fix an assignment, update an assignment, you give them feedback and want to allow them to correct it. If you have this chosen, it doesn't matter how soon before this due date it is, it's not going to let them resubmit. The second option will generate the reports immediately as well, and it says they can resubmit until the due date. So if you want all resubmissions to be in before the due date hits, then this is fine. You have nothing else to worry about. There's also the third option, which allows them to resubmit till the due date, but it waits to generate the reports until the due date. We have run into some problems there, and this is a known issue within Turnitin where the or Turnitin will start to ask for the report, and it'll basically time out, and then the reports will never populate like you want them to. So the advice, at least as of recording, is avoid this. This is a known issue with Turnitin, and from what I understand, has been a known issue for some time now. So my advice would be avoid this third option. If you want to allow resubmissions, go with the second option here. Now, it does say after 3 resubmissions, the reports generate for 24 hours. The few people I've talked to already said, more than 3 resubmissions would be kind of a rare case, but that's what we're kind of limited in right now with how Turnitin has things set up. The other issue that we potentially run into then is if you allow resubmissions after the due date, because like it says, we can only resubmit until the due date. So it's kind of a rigid guideline that we have to follow. The one workaround we have right now is if you want to, 1, allow resubmissions, and 2, you want to allow resubmissions after the due date potentially, you can set this due date to be a later date. So maybe I want students to have the ability to do resubmissions up to a week after the actual assignment due date, which we set as the 22nd. I can set this to the 29th. That will leave that window open so that Turnitin believes that it's still before the due date, even though the due date was really the 22nd. There have been some questions on, are students going to see this date? Is that going to cause confusion? Everything within Canvas, again, calendar to do, the assignment is going to show that date of the 22nd. If a student goes into the settings, I believe they have to click 2 different places to get this due date to show up. So technically, is it visible to them? Yes. Is it super easy for them to find? No. It's probably something that I would say best practice would be to let them know that they have that extra window, but always follow the due date that Canvas says, not a due date that Turnitin says. That could cause some potential conflict. But like I said previously, this is our best option for allowing resubmissions after the due date at this point. And again, that's based on tests that we've run in IDTT and what Turnitin has told us at this point in time. So again, due date in Canvas set as normal. Make sure your due date matches that if you're not planning on allowing resubmissions. If you're going to allow for late submissions, make sure that this is turned on. And if you want to allow resubmissions, you have to change the options under similarity report. If you want to allow resubmissions after the due date, then you have to set this due date back a little bit further, leaving your Canvas due date alone. Hopefully that will get you through some of the big issues that we found as we've made this transition to the external tool for Turnitin. And if you have any questions, as always, you can contact us in IDTT. Come visit us down in L160. Give us a call or shoot us an email.